Caucasus tea. The snow-capped Caucasus Mountains divide the tiny Republic of Georgia from Russia, and the green, fertile foothills are home to Georgian Caucasus tea. West Georgia has ideal conditions for the production of specialty tea: clean air, fertile land, organic farming methods, and abundant sparkling clear water. Away from the towns, life in Georgia has changed little over the years. Traditional simple farming methods are still followed because they work effectively. Tea growing and tea manufacture has also been absorbed into this simple country life. For decades, in contrast to Soviet industrial-scale tea production, Georgian handmade tea has been quietly produced in farmhouses for family consumption. Just as butter and cheese, bread and wine are produced in the home, so too is tea, using simple and natural processes. Now, as Georgia reaches out to a new era and the vast Soviet-style tea factories crumble into ruins, this simple and forgotten country craft of handmade tea making is becoming recognized internationally as a much sought-after specialty tea. Caucasus tea. Return to simple origins. But first, a quick history lesson using some Georgian archive films. Subtropical Georgia was for 70 years the tea garden of the Soviet Union to the north. Russian tea was Georgian tea, and to supply the Soviet samovars, Georgian tea production was steadily increased to reach 200,000 tons annually. That's an amazing 10 billion cups of tea per year. Tea was introduced into Russia in 1638 when China made a present of tea to King Mikhail, grandfather of Peter the Great. 50 years later, a trade pact was signed that saw camel caravans loaded with tea taking 10 months to reach Moscow. Gradually, tea became popular. First, the nobility drank tea and later the people, so that by the 19th century Russia considered growing her own. Experiments soon showed that Georgia had the best conditions, and the first commercial tea was planted in 1890, close to the Black Sea, by a Chinaman, Lao Zhou, who invited to bring tea, seed, and expertise to Georgia by Russian businessmen, the brothers Popov. A tea factory was built, and by the year 1900, Georgian tea received a gold medal at the Paris International Exhibition. This was to be the first of many awards for fine flavor and quality received in the early days of manufacture. The huge demand for Georgian tea, packed for distribution throughout the vast Soviet Union, put heavy pressure on the Georgian farmers. Initially, Georgian tea growing, tea plucking, and tea manufacture was modeled on well-tried traditional British methods used in India and Ceylon. By the 1930s, the Soviet authorities had decided to fast-track tea production by the introduction of the latest technologies. The most notable of these was the introduction of mechanical tea harvesting. Individual handheld harvesters and giant tractor-mounted units straddling endless rows of tea hedges. With these modern machines, a few men could easily replace 1,000 pluckers. In the factory, conveyors replaced people and production leaped. But while the tonnage increased, the quality of factory-made Georgian tea fell to a very inferior level, and post-Soviet demand disappeared. Now Georgians are rediscovering a well-kept secret: handmade Georgian tea, Caucasus tea. And handmade Caucasus tea is being exported from this forgotten tea origin to tea connoisseurs all around the world. Tea-making families from the best-growing areas of West Georgia have recently joined together into a Handmade Tea Makers Association. To date, there are more than 200 families in this cooperative venture. The association will ensure that high standards of tea quality and hygiene are met and that the characteristic flavors and types of handmaking are preserved. Association founder-member Natella Gujabidze lives in a tiny village in the Goria region. From her childhood, she has only had handmade tea to drink. Natella was married at 17 and was taught by her new mother-in-law how to pluck and make tea. After working in the Soviet tea fields for 15 years, she became foreman of pluckers, and now she delights in teaching the younger generation about tea and tea making. Natella traveled to China in 1977 to see how they made their handmade tea. Back home, she improved her own tea-making process. Zia Jinjihadze and her son George also helped found the Handmade Tea Association. Before 1990, in Soviet times, they were plucking tea for the local factory, and at home they made tea by hand, but only for family consumption. But today the family is also producing tea for selling. Handmade tea making is entirely natural. No machinery is used, only human hands and human skill, and the strong Georgian summer sun is used for drying. The tender tips of the tea bushes are plucked from the family's tea garden and brought home to the farmhouse. Yuri Glonti brings home tea shoots plucked from his own bushes. Yuri started working in his local tea factory in 1960, making wooden chests for packing tea. Then he began studying tea agriculture at the Sukhumi Tea University and soon became the factory's chief agronomist. He and his wife, Tamila Kekitia, have always handmade tea for use at home. Now they're proud to be selling their tea to others. The first stage in tea making is withering. Skilled withering is the key to making good quality tea. Slow and regular loss of moisture makes the leaf limp and ready for rolling. The leaf is turned often to ensure that moisture loss is even. The leaf is withered for 18 hours, both through the night and by day, in the shade of a shed or on a veranda, never withered under the sun, because the hot sun dries the leaf. Withering is a low, slow, natural process of moisture loss while the leaf ripens, ready for the next stage in tea making, hand rolling. Here, Tamila is rolling withered leaf in the traditional way by hand. She rolls it on a ribbon board. During this process, she is bruising and twisting the leaf to encourage oxidation. Natella uses a different method and rolls her withered leaf in a bowl. This is the way it was done before power rolling machinery was invented 200 years ago. This hand rolling process lasts 30 to 40 minutes. It is hard work. She must roll the leaf until juice is squeezed out as froth on the surface. This shows that the leaf is well bruised. It takes many years to learn the skill of rolling tea by hand. She splits apart tea balls to get evenly rolled or twisted tea and not to have any flat, unrolled leaf remaining. Untangling the leaf exposes the bruised cells to atmospheric oxygen to initiate the next process stage, oxidation. During natural oxidation, the green catechins in the tea juice are converted into red-brown polyphenols. The leaf is kept cool under a wet cloth. This stage is best done in cool, dark conditions. After oxidation is complete, it takes from 4 to 8 hours depending on the weather. The leaf is turned out onto tables. It is spread very thinly and is left to dry in the direct sunlight. During drying, the leaf changes visually from greenish-brown to the familiar black color. The drying leaf is inspected at intervals to make sure that drying is even and complete. The final check for Caucasus tea quality is to smell the wonderful sweet aroma. Georgian handmade tea is unique in that a handful of the well-twisted leaves will hold together like a swarm of bees, emulating perhaps the close partnership of the members of the Georgian Handmade Tea Makers Association. And now, the final test, and a well-earned tea break at the end of the working day. A family proud to be using simple traditional methods to produce rare and special teas, and proud that their homemade teas are being sought after by the international market.